A Russian invasion of Ukraine is highly likely. That's the assessment of the UK Defence Secretary, as more than a dozen countries urge their citizens to leave and diplomatic efforts intensify. Canada's Prime Minister says all options remain on the table as efforts continue to remove protesters blocking key trade routes. Early results from a referendum in Switzerland say people have voted to outlaw tobacco advertising anywhere young people might see it. Opponents of the initiative, which include the Swiss government and parliament, say it goes too far. And the biggest event of the year for American football fans, Super Bowl 56, takes place in Los Angeles later. More than 100 million people are expected to tune in on TV.
Amid growing concerns over Ukraine, diplomatic efforts are taking place. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow on Tuesday. Moscow and Berlin have strong economic ties, with Russia supplying large amounts of natural gas to Germany. Analysts say Putin may try to use the meeting to sway the unity of Western nations, which threaten to impose huge economic sanctions on Russia if it invades Ukraine. Ahead of the meeting with Putin, Scholz showed a hardline stance by warning Russia of immediate sanctions if it attacks Ukraine. The German chancellor also plans to travel to Kiev on Monday to meet the president of Ukraine. Their meeting will come amid a flurry of diplomatic activity to resolve the standoff with the West. On Saturday, Putin held phone talks with U.S. President Joe Biden following a call with French President Emmanuel Macron. After the talks, a senior Kremlin official said that while Biden explained his view on security, it doesn't take into account key concerns of Moscow, including a halt to the further expansion of NATO. The official added that President Putin will carefully study Washington's view and provide details of Moscow's reaction. Russia is likely to continue its ongoing large-scale joint military drills this week in Belarus, a Russian ally bordering Ukraine. Kremlin officials say President Putin had a telephone conversation with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko on Saturday. The leaders are believed to have discussed responses to the situation. Meanwhile, people in Kiev appear calm and are carrying on their lives normally.
We're living normally, just like usual. We're not making any additional preparations for anything extraordinary. We know it may happen, but we hope it will not.
However, Kiev's mayor said last week that the city is preparing for a possible attack by Russia. The foreign chiefs of Japan, the United States, and South Korea have shared concerns over North Korea's repeated ballistic missile tests. They say the launches pose a threat to international peace and stability. Japanese Foreign Minister Hayashi Yoshimasa, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and South Korean Foreign Minister Chon Wi-yon met on Saturday in Hawaii. They agreed to step up security cooperation among the three countries to increase deterrence. They also confirmed the importance of strictly implementing the UN Security Council resolutions against North Korea. And they agreed their countries will closely coordinate on the Security Council's future responses and deepen discussions about diplomatic efforts. The top diplomats shared concerns over activities that undermine the rule-based international order, with China's assertive actions in mind. They agreed to show strong opposition to unilateral actions, including attempts to change the status quo.
I believe cooperation between Japan, the US, and South Korea is vital for dealing with North Korea and for peace and stability in the region.
Hayashi said Blinken and Chon also expressed support on the issue of the Japanese nationals abducted by North Korean agents decades ago. Now for the latest from the Beijing Olympics, where American speed skater Erin Jackson claimed the gold on Sunday in the women's 500-meter race. Jackson crossed the finish line in a time of 37.04 seconds. She became the first African-American woman to win an Olympic medal in an individual speed skating event. The World Cup leader missed out on automatic Olympic qualification at the 2022 U.S. trials, but made the team after race winner Brittany Bowe gave up her spot in favor of Jackson. The silver medal went to Japan's Takagi Miho. She is already the most decorated Japanese athlete competing in the Winter Olympics, and this silver brought her medal tally to 5. Takagi will compete in the 1,000-meter race on Thursday, aiming to win her first gold medal in an individual event. Meantime, Switzerland's Marco Odermatt has won gold in the alpine skiing men's giant slalom. Odermatt took the lead on the first run and never looked back. Poor visibility caused by heavy snow falling for the first time during the games delayed the second run by more than 70 minutes. Afterwards, the 24-year-old said it was hard to stay focused in the conditions, but described his win as unbelievable. Athletes representing Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East also took part. Saudi Arabia and Haiti fielded their country's first Winter Olympians. Saudi skier Faik Abdi started racing less than a year ago and finished 44th. He said he wanted to inspire his country's people to do what they love and to find a passion. In the biathlon, Norway's Marte Olsbu Ruiseland won the women's 10-kilometer pursuit. That's her third gold medal after the mixed relay and 7.5-kilometer sprint. Now to the coronavirus situation here in Japan. Officials in Tokyo reported more than 13,000 new cases on Sunday, the fifth straight day of week-on-week declines. The daily tally in the capital is down more than 4,400 from the same day last week. The hospital bed occupancy rate is 58.8%. Tokyo and 12 other prefectures extended a quasi-state of emergency by 3 weeks through March 6th. This will give officials the authority to take stricter measures. Gifu is one of the prefectures that has extended the restrictions. The number of visitors at this ski resort has dropped to nearly 2/3 of the figure before the quasi-state of emergency.
We'd been looking forward to the lifting of the restrictions. The extension is disappointing, as it will have a serious impact on our business.
Health authorities across Japan confirmed more than 77,000 new cases on Sunday. Over 1,300 people are in serious condition. Residents of Tokyo are bracing for the second heavy snowfall of the last few weeks. Authorities are warning of possible traffic disruption and urging caution. Weather officials are forecasting heavy snow in central and eastern Japan through Monday morning. The Transport Ministry is calling on people to avoid non-essential travel.
If you have to go out, please stay on top of the latest weather and traffic information. And make sure you give yourself enough time to get to your destination. When driving, please fit your car with snow tires or chains.
Just last month, 10 centimeters of snow piled up in the center of the capital, leading to delays and accidents. The ministry says it's considering closing expressways and some other roads. Officials are calling on people relying on public transport to watch out for delays or service suspensions. Airlines have already canceled about 30 flights, mainly into or out of Tokyo's Haneda Airport on Monday. The companies say more flights could be canceled, depending on the weather conditions.
All right, we do want to turn to the Beijing Winter Games and the hearing going on right now on whether a 15-year-old star Russian figure skater will be able to compete after testing positive for a banned substance. The decision could have an impact on the medals for Team USA. ABC's Alex Perche is live in Beijing with more. Alex, good morning.
This morning, the fate of Russian phenom Kamila Valieva's future at these Olympics, the center of an emergency hearing. The Court of Arbitration for Sport determining if she can take the ice in the women's single competition. Valieva expected to find out their ruling Monday. And Reuters now reporting the World Anti-Doping Agency is opening an investigation into her coaches and doctors. Her coach insisting she's innocent and clean.
Are you able to confirm that the only decision that will come from this hearing is whether or not Valieva will compete in the women's program?
My understanding is that this is about the lifting or not lifting of that suspension.
Valieva tested positive in December for trimetazidine, a heart medication banned by the IOC, which did not learn of the result until after she helped the Russian Olympic Committee win gold in the team skate event last week. The IOC saying a decision on if Russia keeps that gold will come at a later point.
You can be completely sympathetic to a 15-year-old's plight. You can be completely sympathetic to everything she's going through.
These games now clouded in part by controversy. The stakes of this CAS hearing couldn't be higher.
I think we all pretty much feel that she did not make this decision herself to dope. But if you allow someone to get away with doping and winning a gold medal, that's the headline that sticks 100 years from now.
Meanwhile, history moments ago, with Erin Jackson becoming the first black woman speed skater to medal in the Olympics, taking home the gold in the 500-meter. And Team USA's quest for more gold continues in the Olympic debut of the monobob. Kaylee Humphries in the lead after 2 heats. Alana Myers-Taylor, who was in COVID isolation until she tested out last week, also in the hunt, currently in 4th place.
Well, and as you can see, we're getting our first real winter weather of these Olympics. High winds and snow forcing cancellations and postponements of at least 2 events today. The snow expected to continue into the evening. Whit?
Nothing like the winter weather canceling events at the Winter Games, but I guess that's what happens. Alex, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
The big question as we come on the air, will Russia invade Ukraine this week? That's the warning right now from the White House. The U.S. and other Western nations are closing down their embassies in Kiev, ordering personnel to leave the country as more troops are sent to the region. But diplomacy continues as well. President Biden held a 1-hour phone call with Vladimir Putin yesterday, warning an invasion would trigger swift and severe costs. French President Macron also spoke with Putin. More talks are scheduled for this week. The crisis is fluid, confusing, and tense. Our coverage begins this morning with Terry Moran in Kiev, Mary Bruce at the White House. Good morning, Mary.
George, good morning. Well, the bottom line is that this phone call between Vladimir Putin and President Biden did not produce much progress. After speaking for a little over an hour, we are told there was no fundamental change. Biden again stressed to Putin that invading Ukraine would lead to swift and severe costs to Russia, and he cautioned that there would be widespread human suffering. Biden, we're told, also was direct with Putin about his concerns for the safety and security of Americans in Ukraine as well. Now, the Kremlin this morning says the U.S. is trying to create a sense of hysteria, but the White House says that Russia's actions speak louder than its words, and right now we are seeing that continued buildup along the border and a lack of de-escalation, George.
And Mary, this is based on intelligence the White House has seen about a possible invasion this week?
It is. And George, look, we are told that the 2 teams agreed to continue to engage, but that does not mean that there won't be military action by the Russians. So right now, the U.S. is continuing down these 2 paths of diplomacy and deterrence, and they simply say that they do not know if Putin has made up his mind whether to invade or not, but that he certainly could in the next few days, George.
Mary Bruce, thanks. Let's go to Terry Moran in Kiev. And Terry, there seems to be some cognitive dissonance between what we're hearing from the White House, what you're seeing on the ground there in Kiev.
It's surreal, George. In one sense, Ukraine is clearly a country on the knife's edge. Ukrainian forces are on high alert. Reservists are mobilized. The mayor of Kiev has announced an evacuation plan for the city's 3 million citizens. But life still feels normal here. People are still out and about. Last night, Saturday night, Sunday traffic is light. Lines at the airport a little bit longer, but there's no rush for the borders. And part of the reason for that is that the Ukrainian government has taken a very different view and a very different tone. President Zelensky of Ukraine saying that all the warnings of a Russian invasion are just sowing the seeds of fear. He says the U.S. is creating a panic, which he called, quote, the best friend of our enemies. Meanwhile, the Russian military buildup continues. More boots on the ground around the country's borders, more ships at sea off the coast. And now major airlines are considering the possibility of suspending flights into Ukraine. The Dutch carrier KLM already deciding to stop flights here. And a Portuguese flight today to Ukraine was redirected in mid-flight to Moldova because the company's insurer had decided that it would not fly into Ukraine anymore. But as I said, the people here just don't really believe it. It may be wishful thinking. Last night I was talking to a young man at a pub just down the street here, and he said, no invasion. There will be no invasion. This is all just an information war. George?
Terry Moran, thanks very much.
The Supreme Court vacancy, President Biden this week expected to start interviewing possible replacements for retiring Justice Stephen Breyer. ABC's Kenneth Moten is in Washington with more. Kenneth, good morning.
Good morning, Whit. It is expected to be interview week here at the White House as President Biden prepares to make his mark on the Supreme Court, a chance for the president to sit down and get some face-to-face time with a person who would be a historic pick. Aides say the president spending his weekend at Camp David studying a short list of potential nominees and binders of their past cases. President Biden has said he'll nominate the High Court's first black woman to replace retiring Justice Stephen Breyer. Court watchers believe that short list includes Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson of the U.S. Court of Appeals in Washington, Judge Leandra Kruger of the California Supreme Court, and Judge J. Michelle Childs of the U.S. District Court in South Carolina. Senate Democrats huddled here a few days ago with the president. They want him to move quickly because of their razor-thin majority. The president wants bipartisan support, but Senate Democrats know they can confirm a nominee without the Republicans. Only a simple majority needed. But the president is also hearing from Democrats outside the Senate. A group of black female lawmakers in the House are calling on Biden to choose a nominee committed to advancing civil rights, someone strong on criminal justice reform and protections for workers. The president has said he's looking for an open-minded nominee who, like Breyer, has a mainstream interpretation of the Constitution, and the president has said he will name that nominee by the end of the month. Eva.
Kenneth Moten for us there in Washington. Thanks, Kenneth.
Officials say those days-long trucker protests that blocked a bridge in Michigan could even lead to disruptions for the Super Bowl. Let's go to the latest now from ABC's Elwyn Lopez. She is live in Detroit. Elwyn, good morning.
Hey, Gio, good morning. Those large trucks that had been blocking this crucial Ambassador Bridge are now gone. But this morning, police continue to face off with protesters there. This as officials warn of potential protests in the U.S., some of which they say carry the potential of disrupting the Super Bowl. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security warning in a memo that the convoy could severely disrupt transportation, federal government, and law enforcement operations through gridlock and potential counter-protests. Here at the U.S.-Canada border, the week-long blockade at the Ambassador Bridge has halted crucial auto parts from making their way into factories, causing the loss of millions of dollars. And not just automakers, but for workers too. Other protests like these against COVID-19 mandates and restrictions popping up across the globe. In Paris, police firing tear gas to disperse several demonstrators, and authorities in New Zealand blasted music to break up protesters there. And back in Canada, Windsor police describe the removal of protesters to me as methodical, and they tell me that no option is off the table. What?
All right, Owen, thank you.
We're joined now by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Madam Speaker, thank you for coming in again this morning.
My pleasure. Good morning.
You just saw those reports right there. The White House is warning of an imminent invasion of Ukraine. The Ukrainians seem to think that that's all hype. Do you believe that Putin is poised to invade?
Well, I think we have to be prepared for it, and that is what the president is. Yes, I do believe that he is prepared for an invasion. I also understand why the president of Ukraine wants to keep people calm and that he wants his economy not to suffer. But on the other hand, if we were not threatening the sanctions and the rest, it would guarantee that Putin would invade. Let's hope that the diplomacy works. It's about diplomacy deterrence, and the president has made it very clear. There's a big price to pay for Russia to go there. So if Russia doesn't invade, it's not that he never intended to. It's just that the sanctions
Are you
worked.
convinced that President Biden is doing everything he can to prevent an invasion? Is Congress doing everything you can to prevent an invasion?
Well, I'm very proud of the work the president has done. The unity of our allies and NATO to come to an agreement as to the severity of the sanctions is very, very important. And that is something that Putin should pay very close attention to. Actually, our allies in Europe can suffer sometimes from some of the sanctions because of the impact it has on them, and yet they are there fully on the sanctions front. Yes, we in Congress, the sanctions are the tactic the president is taking. He can do that by executive order. It would be better if we could do it.
What should President Putin know from you, the Speaker of the House, about the consequences of an invasion?
Well, the fact is that we think that an assault on Ukraine is an assault on democracy, and that we are not. We understand the loss of life, the damage, the collateral damage to civilians, to military, and the rest are severe if he decides to invade. The mothers in Russia don't like their children going into war. He's had to experience that, forgive the expression, body bag from the moms before. So he has to know that war is not an answer. There's very severe consequences to his aggression, and that we are united in using them.
Let's talk about the situation here at home. Families are feeling a hit from the highest inflation in 40 years right now, costing the average American family about $275 a month. What can Congress do right now to bring those costs down?
Well, let me just talk about the inflation thing, because people are saying, well, what we're spending is causing inflation. The fact that people have jobs always contributes to increase in inflation, and that's a good thing. But inflation is not a good, we have to contain it.
Wages are not keeping up with prices.
That's right. And let me just say about what Congress has been doing. When we did the Competes Act last week, what contributes to inflation? More people having jobs, scarcity of product, which makes prices go up, and the rest. So when we passed the Competes Act last Friday, this was a giant step forward. Now we have to go to conference with the Senate, and we will shortly, and we'll send it to the president's desk. But what that does is address the supply chain shortages that we have, and therefore will decrease inflation. Secondly, it's important to note this about the BBB. The BBB is a deficit reduction bill. It's a bill that, and some people say when you increase the national debt, you increase inflation. 17 Nobel laureates wrote that the way the BBB was written, with long-term investments and increasing the capacity of people to participate in our success, is non-inflationary. In addition to that, the Joint Tax Committee, which is the imprimatur on all these issues, the Joint Tax Committee says that BBB will reduce the national debt by $100 billion in the first 10 years and $1 trillion in the second 10 years. So what we are doing is, what are the three factors? More people going to work, that's a good thing. More product to lower the cost, the supply side of the supply, more supply, lower cost, and then third, in terms of not increasing the national debt.
But as you know, Senator Manchin, who's the senator that matters right now because he's against it, disagrees. He says it's going to hurt inflation. Let's take a look.
This is not a time to be throwing more fuel on the fire. We have inflation, and we have basically an economy that's on fire. You don't throw more fuel on a fire that's already on fire, causing the problems that we have. So we've got to get our house in order.
Without his vote, this isn't going anywhere.
Well, the fact is that clearly he has. Look, Joe Manchin, as you said, is a senator who counts. Every senator counts, and we have legislation that is so transformative for our country. When you see what President Biden has done in this year, whether it's the rescue package that has put money in people's pockets, taken people off of poverty, vaccines in their arms and the rest, you know that.
Yes, but people aren't feeling it right now. They're upset.
No, I understand that. But there has to be a cumulative effect. And part of the consequences of all of that investment in the infrastructure bill and the rest is that more people have jobs, and therefore inflation goes up. When I first went to Congress, you were there working for Dick Gephardt.
And Dick Gephardt,
yeah,
yes.
Go way back. I went to my first meeting where the head of the Fed came in to talk about inflation and unemployment. That was a requirement that the chairman report to Congress on that. And the first thing Chairman Greenspan said was, unemployment is dangerously low. Well, if you're just measuring it by inflation. But the fact is that the rise in employment, and President Biden, nearly 7 million jobs in his year in office. So yes, we have inflation. It's very important for us to address it. we must bring it down. But it's not right, with all the respect in the world for my friend Joe Manchin, it's not right to say that what we are doing is contributing to inflation, because it is exactly the opposite.
The other thing that's weighing on
17 Nobel laureates, the Joint Tax Committee.
The other thing that's weighing on people right now is rising crime. And there appear to be some divisions among Democrats about how to handle it. Your colleague, Karen Bass, running for mayor of Los Angeles, is trying to increase the police force in L.A. Cori Bush, Congresswoman from Missouri, is saying it's time to defund the police. She's sticking by that. You're the speaker. How do you think Democrats should address rising crime?
Well, with all the respect in the world for Cori Bush, that is not the position of the Democratic Party. Community safety, to protect and defend in every way, is our oath of office. And I have sympathy. We're all concerned about mistreatment of people, and that's why Karen Bass had the Justice in Policing Act, and we would hope to get some of that done, whether it's no-knock or chokehold, or some of those issues, even if we can't get it all done. But make no mistake, community safety is our responsibility. And I quote one of my colleagues from New York, Richie Torres, a brand new member of Congress, way on the left, saying that defund the police is dead. That causes a concern with a few in our caucus. But public safety is our responsibility, and I support what Karen Bass is doing, and Mayor Adams of New York.
Inflation, the rising crime are both weighing down on President Biden's approval ratings right now. They're weighing down on Democrats as you head into the midterms. You say you're going to run again this year, but 29 of your fellow Democrats are not running for re-election. How worried are you about the midterms right now?
I don't agonize, I organize. And we are fully intend to win this election. Nothing less is at stake.
That would be bucking history.
Well, forget history. We're talking about future. You know, and when people say, well, the history says that presidents lose seats in the off year. Presidents gain seat on the on seat. We didn't gain seats when President Biden won. We worked together to win the Senate, win the House, and win the White House. It was cumulative, but it wasn't an increase. And one of the reasons that in part the president's party loses seats in the off year is because they gain so many on the on year. We won 40 seats into 18, 31 in Trump districts. In this year with Trump on the ballot, we lost a third of those Trump seats. However, the people who survived in those Trump seats with Trump on the ballot are in very good shape. We take nothing for granted. We intend, by redistricting, which did not do us harm, as people predicted, history and all that, by recruitment, great people coming forward and believing that we can win, with raising of money and attracting the support and the raising interest in the volunteers. We have every intention, every single day, to do everything in our power. We have decided to win, and that's what we will do.
So if you maintain control, you're going to run for Speaker again?
That's not a question. My purpose right now is just to win that election. Is to win that election. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy. But very important in all that is what it means personally to the American people, to their kitchen table issues, whether they're going to be able to pay for food, for medicine, for rent, children's education, and the rest. So our focus that unifies our Democrats, you talked about what may have divided a few of them, what unifies us is the empathy that we have for America's working families and the priority of meeting their needs. Lower cost, bigger paychecks, lower taxes, all paid for by making everyone pay their fair share. With a great president, I think his message. See, when we won in 06 and 08, we were left to our own devices, just us kids. We didn't have a Democrat in the White House. Now we do, so we're even stronger in the ability to win. And who is more empathetic than Joe Biden, who has a bigger vision, more knowledge, more strategic thinking about all this, more authenticity in associating with America's working families.
Madam Speaker, thanks for your time this morning.
Yes, onward to a great Democratic victory. Thank you.
On the eve of Valentine's Day, now to one man's romantic quest to save those love locks that once decorated one of the famed bridges over the River Seine in Paris. ABC's Inez de la Cotera has more.
Good morning, guys. From the most romantic place in the most romantic city, this bridge used to be covered in love locks. They've all been taken down, but one man made it his mission to save some of them.
When Gio and Janelle Fuente visited the City of Love back in 2015, they made sure to stop by the Pont des Arts, the two placing a love lock on the bridge, just like hundreds of thousands of couples before them.
I love you, baby.
I love you too, baby. So much love on that bridge, but just months later, the city of Paris had to take them down over fears the added weight could cause the bridge to collapse.
I remember literally telling my mom one time, like, I hope ours survives somehow.
Seeing that, Phileas, who collects a bunch of antique keys, realized some of those keys could open up antique locks.
And at that time, I became the love lock saver.
Phileas amassing stacks and stacks of locks in his attic.
So this one says, "Will you marry me?"
Yeah.
And among them, there was this one with the names Gio and Janelle Fuente. We were able to track them down in Florida, Gio surprising Janelle with an early Valentine's gift.
Oh my gosh! How did that happen? I was in shock. I would have never expected to see that again.
The two telling us they're celebrating 20 years together this year.
I definitely think the lock was a beautiful thing. This gift is incredible, like you said, 20 years later.
Phileas also discovering a very special lock in his stash.
And at one time, I was cleaning it, and I saw Michelle and Barack, Love Forever. I searched on the internet and found that they went in Paris in 2009.
And two Obama staffers who were on that Paris trip tell us they don't remember there being a time when the Obamas could have come here to put it up. So the story behind that lock, very much still a mystery. Guys?
Ooh, wonder when they put it there. What are the odds, right?
Gio got engaged in Paris.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We walked right by the lock bridge there.
Almost derailed all your plans.
Yeah, exactly. We've been busy overnight, catching the celebrities partying till the wee hours of the morning at those exclusive Super Bowl parties. ABC's Kaylee Hartung is back with that story. Kaylee, good morning again.
Hey, Gio, I would bet when my alarm went off this morning, there were still some folks partying on from last night. Now, LA, of course, is in the business of hosting the most exclusive events, from the Oscars to the Grammys. But the thrill of bringing a Super Bowl to LA, that's taking things to another level.
The biggest stars in entertainment and sports showing up and showing out for Super Bowl 56.
It's my first time going to the Super Bowl. Like, I get to see the halftime show in person, and we got a commercial.
The big game in Los Angeles for the first time in more than 30 years. Celebrities enjoying the party in their own backyards.
You're kidding. I'm getting old. 42, so we're going to go in there and let loose.
From Justin Bieber to Drake. Some of music's biggest names entertaining the hottest parties. But there's no denying which performance is dialing up all the hype.
I can't wait to see that. I'm waiting to see how they're going to do it, how they're going to put it together. They got so many hits between all those folks. Oh man, it's going to be awesome.
And after the pandemic shut down the annual parties a year ago, brands relaunching their Super Bowl staple events.
The most exciting thing is just to be outside around everybody again, feel everybody's energy, and to have everybody feel my energy.
Bring it.
Okay.
But no one doing it bigger than the big man himself. Shaq's Funhouse bringing the circus to LA.
Did you throw the best party of the week?
Of course.
Possibly in the 90s.
I love that guy. Hey, we had so much fun on the Fanatics red carpet yesterday. And I wish, guys, I could give you all the dish, all the gossip on the parties last night. But I went to dinner and went home to sleep. It's been a long week. We have got a long day ahead.
I'm surprised you got any sleep. I'm surprised you got any sleep.
You and me both.
Thank you so much for that.
Time now for Pop News, and I'm just
What you doing, Whip?
cleaning my leg because I dropped a tomato on it. But hey, we got snacks, and Janae's got Pop News.
Yes, you dropped a tomato. Eva, I see your cupcake crumbs. Gio, you've got some under you, too. So everyone's on equal footing. Okay, time for Pop News. This is the first time ever that the Super Bowl and Valentine's Day weekend are colliding, and it's putting stress on what takes priority, love or the big game. No judgments here. In fact, we are combining the two for our first Super Bowl Valentine's Day edition. So check out this delicious spread that recognizes our love of love and football. Thanks to our stage crew and art director, Liz Popiel, for putting it all together. All right, now let's take a look at some popular eats for both events. Google Trends is out with a map of the most popular game day dips. To highlight a few, New York, New Jersey favors buffalo chicken dip. I guess that makes sense. Eva, South Carolina, they prefer corn dip. Ooh, I do like a Whit and Cheryl, jalapeno popper dip in California and Illinois. Gio, it's in Florida, it's cream cheese dip.
Yes!
How about that? Yeah, you like cream cheese? Do you?
Really?
Are you really? Oh, wow. Okay, so
I really like all those dips.
Yeah?
There's not a thing that I can stick a chip in that I
You've
don't
lived in
enjoy.
multiple parts of the country, so that makes sense. As for Valentine's, according to the National Retail Federation, favorite candies for those states are heart-shaped boxes of chocolates and conversation hearts. In South Carolina, what are conversation hearts?
Those little,
chalky
The little sugar things. So they got little messages,
Oh,
remember Rob and I wore a tandem
hearts?
sweater?
Oh,
Remember
yes.
Be Mine, I'm Yours? Remember years ago?
We will never forget, Whitney. We will never forget. And interestingly, Nebraskans favor something called Cupid corn, which is suspiciously like candy corn.
Whit loves.
But in the colors of love. Yeah, I knew. As soon as I read that, I was like, oh, Whit's favorite.
Nope.
Okay, now a look at how a Super Bowl tradition got started. NFL Countdown telling the backstory of that famous phrase shouted by Super Bowl champions for more than 35 years.
I'm going to Disneyland. I'm going to Disney World. Disneyland.
You just climbed Everest. It's as if you were on the top of Everest with somebody while they took the picture with the flag, at the top of the world. That's what that moment is.
We going to Disney World, and we going to Disneyland too. We're going to Disneyland.
If I'm being honest, that is one of my favorite parts of the Super Bowl when they say it at the end. So you can see more on NFL postseason countdown today on ESPN. And finally, showing your love for your team today. Whichever it is, you're in good company if you're a Rams fan. You'll be rooting with the likes of LeBron James, Alyssa Milano, Magic Johnson. If you're a Bengals fan, you'll be cheering with George Clooney, John Legend, and Woody Harrelson. So take your pick.
And if you're a Niners fan, you'll be crying with me.
There you go.
Still loyal,
At least
still
you can
sad.
eat all the treats today.
Exactly. We're going to eat a lot of food to celebrate. And we begin with that breaking news. President Biden warning Vladimir Putin a Russian invasion of Ukraine would bring swift and severe costs. U.S. officials saying a full-scale Russian attack could come within days. The president speaking by phone to Putin for a little over an hour this morning. The call coming as Russian forces conduct live fire exercises in nearby Belarus and massive naval drills in the Black Sea. More than 30 warships now there. A Russian sub spotted on its way from Turkey. U.S. officials ordering nearly all the remaining embassy staff in Ukraine to leave now as the threat of an invasion looms. U.S. troops on the ground now in Romania supporting NATO forces. More than 3,000 members of the 82nd Airborne arriving soon in the region. Now, despite the urgent warnings tonight, Russia denying it intends to invade. ABC's senior national correspondent Terry Moran leading us off from Ukraine.
Tonight, an urgent last-ditch effort at diplomacy. President Biden holding high-stakes talks with Vladimir Putin, seeking to stop a Russian invasion of Ukraine, which the U.S. says could happen in the coming days. Biden and Putin spoke for an hour on the phone today, the president warning that a Russian attack would cause widespread human suffering and that the U.S. and its allies would respond decisively with swift and severe costs.
This is a pivotal moment.
Biden's call coming just hours after Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke for 35 minutes with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. The U.S. saying Lavrov again denied Russia intends to invade Ukraine, but adding Lavrov didn't signal Russia was prepared to de-escalate either.
We're prepared for whatever should happen.
Overnight, the State Department ordered all U.S. embassy personnel except a core team of diplomats to leave Kiev immediately. The U.S. continues to tell Americans here to leave now, saying the U.S. government will not be able to evacuate U.S. citizens in the event of Russian military action. And Germany, Canada, even Russia are all pulling their diplomats out of Ukraine, as are many other nations. The Pentagon has ordered about 160 Florida National Guard troops to leave Ukraine as 3,000 more U.S. forces began arriving in Eastern Europe to bolster NATO's eastern flank. Satellite images reveal the buildup of Russian forces on Ukraine's border, an estimated 130,000 Russian troops now massed on 3 sides. In the Black Sea today, more than 30 Russian warships taking part in live-fire naval drills. Tonight, the mayor of Kyiv announcing a plan for the evacuation of the city's 3 million people, neighborhood by neighborhood, if it's needed. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky taking a different approach, demanding firm proof that Russia is poised to invade, saying today, panic only helps his country's biggest enemy.
All this information that helps only for panic doesn't help us.
While in Ukraine's capital of Kyiv, a march in support of their country. At the local market, life goes on. This woman saying, we live normally, just like before. We do not make any preparations for anything extraordinary. We know it may happen, but we hope it will not. Tonight, there's no panic in the streets. People are out Saturday night. They say they've been living with Russian threats for years, and they're hoping for the best. But ask, and you sense the mood is shifting. Do you think it will be war? I'm ready. What happens next is up to Vladimir Putin.
What he really wants is for the elected government in Kiev to fall so that he can put a puppet government in place. He has the military means to do that. The question is whether he has the resolve and is willing to pay the price.
That is the unknown in all of this. Terry Moran back with us again tonight from Kiev. And Terry, Russia now releasing details about that crucial call between Biden and Putin. What's their take on what was discussed?
Well, the Kremlin says that the U.S. is trying to create an atmosphere of hysteria so that when Russian troops return to their bases, the Kremlin says, the U.S. will just declare victory. But senior American officials tell us they aren't basing these warnings on what's coming out of the Kremlin in Moscow, but on what they see on the ground here. Whit?
All right, Terry, our thanks to you and your team once again. Next tonight, we move on to that tense standoff at the U.S.-Canadian border. It appears to be coming to an end. Trucks that had been blocking the Ambassador Bridge, a vital thoroughfare between the two countries, being removed. Police facing off with hundreds of protesters remaining behind. The bridge still closed. Those protests against COVID restrictions spilling overseas now, including Paris. Police using tear gas there to disperse demonstrators. Here's ABC's Elwin Lopez tonight from Detroit.
Tonight, a showdown at the U.S.-Canada border. Police moving in, forming a line and holding it, step by step and face to face. Clearing out protesters blocking the busiest border crossing in North America. Our Ashan Singh is on the Canadian side.
This morning, protesters actually started evacuating the entrance of the Ambassador Bridge after a strong police presence. Now, it's been a few hours and they've left the bridge entrance, but they haven't moved far.
Who are you protecting? The 6-day blockade of the Ambassador Bridge linking Detroit to Windsor, Ontario, bringing in a quarter of all trade between the two countries, came to a screeching halt, hammering the auto industry unable to get crucial parts into factories. And without them, production taking a hit, along with workers.
I've been in the company for 9 years. There's always changes that happen, but this is different.
General Motors forced to cancel several shifts. Automakers like Ford and Toyota scaling back. Now experts say factory workers in Michigan could lose more than $51 million in wages this week alone.
Automakers have already been struggling for the past year with the computer chip shortage, so this comes at a really bad time.
Demonstrators against COVID-19 mandates crippling Canada's capital for a third straight weekend. And tonight, the protests could possibly be spreading to the U.S. Buffalo bracing for truck convoys. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security warning of demonstrators potentially disrupting the Super Bowl tomorrow in Los Angeles and the State of the Union next month in Washington.
And
Whit, tonight, Windsor police tell me they're methodically moving protesters out, officials reiterating that they want this to end peacefully. Experts say if the bridge opens up soon, plants could be back up and running by early next week. Whit.
All right, Ellen, thanks. We turn now to the pandemic and disappointment for many parents of young children reacting to the news of another vaccine delay. Pfizer pulling their request for authorization for kids under 5, saying they're waiting for more data. The timeline for shots now being pushed back to April or May at the earliest. The news coming as the daily case average in the U.S. has dropped below 200,000 for the first time since December, down more than 75% from the Omicron peak. But the numbers remain comparable to the highest points of the nation's previous peaks. Here's ABC's Phil Lipoff from New York.
Tonight, as COVID restrictions loosen across the country, parents of America's youngest children grappling with the news that vaccines for children 6 months to under 5 have been put on hold. Pfizer waiting for more trial data, delaying its request for FDA authorization of its vaccine for that age group for a few more months.
I think the more vaccines for me, the better. But at the same time,
wait a few more
months, if it's for safety, I think it's a really good thing.
Pediatricians, including those at Golden Gate Pediatrics outside San Francisco, now telling parents to be patient.
They understand, but, I think there's a bit of a letdown, but overall, it's better to get it right.
And if anything, this should add some trust to the general public about how thoroughly the FDA looks at all data with respect to safety and efficacy.
Last week, more than 600,000 children tested positive for COVID, but that's down from its peak of more than 1.1 million just 3 weeks ago. Depending on where you live, some vaccine requirements, even mask mandates, are going away. But health experts are warning, don't let your guard down just yet. Nationwide, the CDC says we are still losing 2,300 people a day to COVID. And there's news on therapeutics tonight to fight COVID. The FDA authorizing a new monoclonal antibody treatment from Eli Lilly that has shown promising results in fighting Omicron. 2 monoclonal antibody treatments previously that were doing well against the Delta variant shown not to be as effective against Omicron. That Eli Lilly therapy, we're told, will be given intravenously to infected patients at high risk of severe illness. Whit?
Another tool in the battle against the virus. Phil, thank you. Now to the record-breaking heat in the West as the Rams and Bengals prepare to take the field tomorrow in the Super Bowl. The kickoff temperature at California's SoFi Stadium expected to be in the lower 80s, well above normal for this time of year, and weather whiplash in the Northeast. Let's get to meteorologist Cheryl Scott from our Chicago station WLS. Cheryl, good evening. What can we expect?
Hi, Whit. Yes, unseasonably hot conditions continuing on the West Coast. Heat advisories in place continuing through Sunday for California with highs expected back in the low to mid 80s. We are talking about potentially one of the hottest Super Bowl kickoff temperatures on record. And here on the East Coast, feeling spring-like weather. That's all about to change, come crashing down. Look at these wind chills tomorrow. It's going to feel below zero upper Midwest and in the 20s and 30s on the East Coast. And with this cold weather comes some snow, light amounts of accumulating snow from Virginia, Philadelphia, up into New York. The snow will wrap by Sunday night, but that cold isn't going anywhere. It's sticking around with even colder conditions across the Northeast on Monday. Whit?
All right, Cheryl, it's good to have you with us tonight. Thank you. Out of Beijing and the scandals rocking the Winter Games, a 15-year-old star Russian figure skater, a favorite for individual gold, testing positive for a banned substance. The Court of Arbitration for Sport set to hold a video conference tomorrow to decide whether she can remain in China and compete. And the investigation involving USA snowboarding as more medals are handed out. ABC's Marcus Moore in China tonight.
Tonight, the drama in Beijing. Olympics officials promising to decide whether Russian skating phenom Kamila Valieva can take the ice in the women's singles competition by Monday, just 24 hours before the event begins. Our Alex Prochet pressing Olympics officials about the timeline for a decision.
Given the time crunch here, are you confident that there will be a resolution to this by the 15th?
There will be a resolution of this specific case, which is whether suspension will be lifted or not. Yeah, I'm certain of that.
On Christmas Day, the 15-year-old phenom tested positive for a banned heart medication, which may help increase endurance. But it wasn't reported until after she helped the Russians win the gold in the team event over the U.S. The athletes from Russia could lose their medals, giving Team USA the gold. Russian athletes with a long history of cheating allegations already banned from competing under their country's flag because of a state-funded doping program during the 2014 Sochi Games. American figure skater Adam Rippon writing on Twitter, "The entire situation is heartbreaking. This young girl is just 15. She's a minor. The adults around her have completely failed her." The teen's coach denying the claims, saying she is, quote, innocent and clean. And tonight, the U.S. snowboard team, fresh off of a history-making gold medal win in the new mixed team cross event, facing a controversy of its own. Former Olympian Callan Chiluk-Sipsov accusing head coach Peter Foley of sexual harassment, and former teammate Hagen Carney of repeatedly using a racial slur around her in 2014.
Carney apologized on Instagram, saying that he used a racial slur once, quote, in a joking manner, and that it was utterly stupid and disgusting behavior. He said that he faced being let go from the U.S. team over that incident. Foley, meanwhile, has denied the sexual harassment allegations against him. He told the New York Times that they were surprising to him and that right now he's concentrating on supporting the athletes here at the Olympics. Whit.
Marcus Moore in Beijing tonight. Thank you.
In case you missed it, and this past Tuesday, the Oscar nominations were announced, bringing with it a slew of firsts and new records. To start, Steven Spielberg nabbed his 8th Best Director nod for West Side Story, making him the first person to be recognized in the category across 6 decades.
He's got some talent, doesn't he, Steven? Yeah, he's done a few things. And then Kenneth Branagh, who wrote and directed the black and white coming-of-age film Belfast, broke the record for most Oscar nominations across most categories throughout his career. 7 nominations in 7 different categories.
Wow, just amazing. And last but not least, Beyonce, she landed her first Oscar nomination for her song Be Alive in the film King Richard. So good for her.
She needed something else on her resume, just to like, bring it full circle.
She's got all the things.
That's right. And the Academy Awards, Sunday, March 27th, right here on ABC. That major reversal, federal regulators delaying their review of the Pfizer vaccine for kids under 5 to gather more data on a potential 3rd dose. Now, this pause comes just as some states lift mask mandates, and while many are taking off those masks, others are doubling down, wanting even more filtration. KN95s, they've been the most available high filtration masks for sale, but Becky Worley has a warning about a glut of fake ones on the market now.
According to the CDC, these critical pieces of protection may not be offering the filtration they promise. The agency's site listing masks that it says are not approved and might not offer adequate protection. KN95s are supposed to filter out 95% of very small particles. But Aaron Collins, a mechanical engineer with a background in aerosol science, says he's tested many supposed KN95s that only filter 30% of particles.
So counterfeit respirators are a big issue, and it's almost exclusively in the KN95 space. And so we're seeing a lot of fakes in that space or underperforming masks.
Add to that a 2020 report that stated 60 to 70% of KN95 masks did not meet U.S. regulatory standards. And this has consumers asking,
I think all these masks are legitimate, but how do I really know?
There are a lot of things people could look for in a counterfeit mask that are red flags.
The starting point?
You have to make sure that the manufacturer is reputable.
She says buy directly from their website. Also, look at the packaging for any misspellings or weird phrasing.
Experts also say look for quality control issues. Is the nose piece centered and sewn in properly? Are the ear loops strongly affixed?
Which look pretty good on this one. But self-described mask nerd Aaron Collins says it's tough.
Are you at 98% or 30%? This becomes a real problem because you don't know what the quality of the mask is and you can't just tell by looking at it.
Aaron says he prefers KF94s, which he says are highly regulated by the Korean government, many of which strangely come from beauty importers, like Be Healthy USA, also Collecte USA. He also says don't buy from online superstores. Instead, order from sites like Project N95 that he says verifies their masks. For Good Morning America, Becky Worley, ABC News, Oakland, California.
Such good tips there.
And we were talking about how much we like our
The KF94s. Yeah, we were just talking about that. Yeah.
All right, Becky, thank you for that. Let's